Okay, this is Jen the Liberty Lion, and in this video, we're reading out of the book Minding the Law: How Courts Rely on Storytelling and How Their Stories Change the Ways We Understand the Law and Ourselves, starting on page 189, Encoding Meaning into Words. So, the reason why I'm making this video is because we're talking about a lot about deception and deception in law, deception in the military, and deception in general. And one of the ways we're deceived is when um, words are changed in propaganda, through propaganda, and um, a lot of this deception is written in court opinions, verdicts, and such. So one of the things we need to talk about if we're going to talk about deception is deception in the writings of the courts. So we're going to talk about from this book, Encoding Meaning into Words. And actually, we're just going to read a couple of paragraphs out of this book. So this is by Amsterdam and Bruner, a really good book. I highly encourage it. It's easy to read. You can buy it on Amazon. I don't know, you might be able to find it somewhere online. I haven't looked. So you can go out and look for it yourself. Uh, I don't have the ISBN number for this book, but it's easily found on Amazon. So, encoding meaning into words. Often rhetorics involve not only using words that come pre-coded, but implanting words with new code meanings. One of the most effective ways to code a word is to use it repeatedly within the fabric of a narrative until it has taken on a meaning in that context, and then to lift it out and use it elsewhere without examining or explaining it, simply treating its meaning as a given. We have seen Chief Justice Rehnquist do this with the key word interdistrict, interdistrict, in Missouri v. Jenkins. A more elaborate version of the technique appears in a body of Supreme Court cases upsetting lower courts' stays of execution of death sentences between 1982 and 1986, in which the court coded words like delay and phrases like abuse of the writ of habeas corpus within the narrative frame of a conspiracy myth. Death sentenced inmates and their scheming lawyers were manipulating post conviction procedures in an attempt to frustrate the will of the people and the authority of the nation's highest court in an ideological war of attrition over capital punishment. Not surprisingly, the court and then Congress rose to the occasion by curbing the procedures, defunding the lawyers, and killing the inmates. The coding was particularly cogent in this instance because it tapped the metaphoric potential of abuse and similar code words. Metaphor is the rhetorical process by which discourse unleashes the power that certain fictions have to redescribe reality. It locks the multiple denotations of a word in a bond that resists analytic detachment and causes the use of the word in any one of its senses to trigger the thoughts and feelings that attend the others. So I'm going to stop right here just for a second and point you back to the locution, illocution, and perlocution videos that we went over, where the locution is something said, the illocution is what was intended, and the perlocution is what was felt or done. Now, continuing, thus, by characterizing a particular habeas corpus petition as abusive, an adjective denoting doctrinally any second or successive petition raising new grounds that fails to explain on its face why the new grounds were not raised earlier. The court could reap the benefits of all the adjectives, connotations, excessive, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, exploitation, abuse of friendships, abuse, excuse abuse, perfidious, abuse of trust, abuse of confidence, vicious or perverted, child abuse or sexual abuse, and so on. Metaphoric rhetoric, indeed, has played a conspicuous role in the Supreme Court's periodic reconceptualizations of the proper scope of federal habeas corpus remedies for state prisoners who claim that their convictions or sentences were unconstitutional. Stopping here, my note is that if we look at the positive law and the contracts and so on and so forth, and how they can put people in prison for debt when the Constitution um, and the foundations of the laws of the United States are that people are not imprisoned for debt. So how do they do that? Well, they get around it by getting you to sign contracts, taking away that right and giving you an obligation. So continuing, when the Warren Court expanded the reach of the writ in the controversial Fay v. Noya case, its opinion discussed the interplay between habeas corpus procedure and legal change in language full of tropes about organic growth and the world tree. The history of habeas corpus was described as inextricably intertwined with the growth of fundamental rights of personal liberty. Habeas was seen as a writ throwing its root deep into the genius of our common law. Its root principle was said to be that in civilized society, government must always be accountable. The breadth of the federal court's power on habeas corpus, the court wrote, stems from the very nature of the writ, serving to test any restraint contrary to fundamental law, which in England stemmed ultimately from Magna Carta. And although the English Habeas Corpus Act of 1679 concededly accepted judicial detentions that have ripened into criminal convictions, the court noted that standards of due process have evolved over the centuries. On the other hand, when the Rehnquist court later radically restricted the availability of federal habeas corpus relief for state prisoners in the controversial cases of Teague v. Lane and McCleskey v. Zent, its opinions discussed the interplay between habeas corpus procedure and legal change in language full of tropes about riven and eroded rock. So I'll do a video on tropes and what they are. I'm going to skip down to the bottom of this page where it says the Chief Justice cites colonial legislation to prove this universal opinion, including Maryland's law, declaring that if any free Negro or mulatto intermarry with any white woman, or if any white man shall intermarry with any Negro or mulatto woman, such Negro or mulatto shall become a slave during life, and Massachusetts Act for the Better Preventing of a Spurious and Mixed Issue, statutes which Taney concluded show that intermarriages between white persons and Negroes or mulattoes were regarded as unnatural and immoral. I would say love is very natural. The recurrent family trope simultaneously carries the messages of we and they, all of the benevolently paternalistic intellectual baggage of slavery, a dramatic reminder of the dangers of interracial sex and miscegenation, and of the curse of Canaan crying that the black children of Ham deserve eternal servitude because Ham saw his father Noah sleeping nude.